Peace, and greetings. Welcome to 360 Collective. This is volume 2 of the Race to November, where 360 Collective will discuss the most recent events in the presidential race through the lens of race and justice. My name is Isaac Castellaz. I have my good brother Bayuni Amari Dukes with us. Together, we are part of the 360 Collective. We are an education cooperative. We specialize in helping schools, helping teachers, helping school leaders to support students, to meet uncommon challenges with unique, innovative, creative solutions to the most daunting and pressing challenges that they face in their schools and in their communities. We are thrilled that you are here with us tonight. We are going to jump right in to talking about the most recent events in the presidential race. But before we do, we want to make sure that you know that this is a highly interactive experience. We want to hear from you throughout. We want to know what you're thinking, what your thoughts are as we build, as we discuss, as we debate. If we're off on something, we want you to tell us. We want you to correct us, or we want you to lend your insight to us so that we can learn from you, as we hope that you do from our conversation. So with that said, Dukes, I want to show a slide here about the most recent poll coming right off the heels of the Democratic National Convention, which we're going to talk about in just a second. So this was a poll that the Morning Consult Pro did, and it's from today, in fact, and it shows that Harris is still holding about a 4-point lead over Trump nationally. There was a slightly larger gap during the convention. That gap is still there, but it's not quite as big now. It's 4 points. I believe it was up to 8 or 9 at one point. Okay. The thing that I think is interesting about this particular study is that there were only 3 things in either convention, in the Republican convention or the Democratic convention, only 3 events, 3 things that actually reached a majority of voters. And that was Kamala Harris's speech, number 1. It was Michelle Obama's speech, number 2. And finally, it was Barack Obama's speech. Those were the 3 things that a majority of voters tapped into and actually listened to. So based on the poll, based on the other insight drawn from this survey, what's your reaction?
I'm surprised a little bit. I think that the momentum I thought would increase and be more. But the other part about that is, I mean, you could look at one poll will say one thing, and another poll can be say another say something totally different. So also it depends on like what type of questions are asked and stuff like that. But like probably was said before, man. I mean, it's still the goal is still to probably get how to get people to the polls. And I don't know if we said this. We talked about this last week on the show, or if it was a conversation we had personally through our email text or to our group text. It's still getting those people who may find it hard to have to vote for a black woman as president, even though they could be enthusiastic now. That means nothing until it's vote time. So, it's just that. So, yeah, I mean, I think that I do expect it to be more. But the other part about this is, I mean, something that doesn't matter is like more or less how can people get people to the polls or vote early to make sure that their votes count. But like I said, with that, I did expect more, a higher bump, more or less, I should say.
Why do you think there wasn't a larger bump, or why do you think that maybe why do you think that the gap was bigger during the convention and it hasn't sustained through this week?
Well, like I said, some of it is going to depend on when those questions were asked. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time. So if a poll is printed out today, sometimes it takes some time to tabulate it. So then maybe who knows exactly what date those questions were asked or what happened during that time frame. I think posters or people who are reading those posts is going to attribute to a lot of things. I mean, you could look at RFK dropping out, and maybe somewhat, dropping out and also endorsing Trump in the situation. That could be a reason. Um,
Mm,
I don't think she lost too much of her stride. I mean, too much of her stride. Maybe some of those uncommitted voters are still waiting for her to do a press run. Something more in depth with some of the bigger news media outlets. So that could be a issue, but I still think that she's putting on a wonderful campaign in the limited time that she has. So
mm.
to get what we got so far with her is still, it's still it's still pretty good.
Okay. I saw today, or it might have been yesterday, that Trump is increasing the pace of his campaign. He's scheduling more visits,
Hmm.
so he's ramping up. And like the word is that he's very about Harris, that he doesn't know how to confront her, how to challenge her. So that's something to watch as well.
Um,
Yeah, go ahead, Dukes.
can you hear me? I'm trying to figure out what happened to my
Yeah. Your visual went out, but I can still
um
hear you. But go
um
ahead.
I think that he has to figure out a way to combat her. I think that she's coming out very direct and not running from or not acting as normal Democrats has been doing, scared, not willing to swing back or attack back um, towards him. So I think that he's getting stunned a little bit. Some of those attacks or those naming callings that typically probably would have affected Biden and the people who was voting for Biden. They're not really
Mm.
affecting her, and that could be the problem. So now he gets to figure out what to do. And then also at the same time, like his running mate is not has his own issues also, right? So then um, it's trying to find he has to combat his running mate, some of the stuff that he's saying, and um, so yeah, I get that he definitely has to get out there a little bit more, just because of who she is.
Yeah. Okay, and we're going to talk a little more about Robert Kennedy and some other things, obviously related to campaign strategy and everything a little bit later. But let's stick with the Democratic National Convention for now, and let's think about how and talk about how we both felt as we watched, as we experienced, and everything. What are your broad takeaways about the convention?
I think that comparatively, theirs versus the Democrats, I think they had a better organized event. Uh, Not one pandering to people, but more or less had um, the right people speaking at the right time in the right order.
Mm,
You
mm,
know, so you had like somebody was saying, made a comparison earlier, like keep in mind that the Republican presidents that are alive,
mm,
they didn't show up at all. None of them, none of them walked across on stage with him. None of them showed support, right?
mm,
Um, and it's all right to have entertainers to speak and do those type of things, but at the right time. Sometimes like they had these people speaking during prime time when you could have had anybody.
mm,
You think about Amber Rose night one. Hulk Hogan went on 2 days. Maybe that was Thursday night. And like I said, it's all right to have those people, but when you have Michelle and Barack, and you have uh, the Clintons, you know what I'm saying? I mean, there's a different type of lineup that says one person is serious and the other person is not. You know, that's what it appears to be. Even if you're trying to appear to a certain demographic, you still want serious people speaking, and I think that you can just tell the difference. I think also the the speakers that were chosen, they gave a vision, for decades.
mm,
And what you hear from the other camp is like doom and gloom.
mm.
And so people can walk away like, maybe the world's not going to end. Maybe, I mean, so it's just different. So it's like a continuation of hope, a little bit. So that just listen to those speeches and listen to how things went comparatively. One is the world's going to end. The other one, the world can continue just if we just do our part.
Yeah, I think some of that has to be so because Harris is in many ways an incumbent. She's going to distance herself increasingly from Biden and step into her own platform and policies. Eventually, she expressed a lot of it in her speech, and more is sure to come between now and the first debate. In that sense, though, there must be a feeling of, hey, listen, we're on the right track. Let's keep going. Let's keep working on things. There's hope. There's opportunity in the future, right? So part of it is built into the fact that she is kind of an incumbent. The other part of it, though, too, is the fact that Republicans have nothing to offer. I mean, nothing at all except pure animosity, fear, hatred, demagoguery, bigotry, hatred. I mean, there's just nothing. There's absolutely nothing there whatsoever. And Democrats know that, and they leaned into the fact that they could be fun, they could express and experience joy. I mean, there were comedians, there were skits. I mean, there was a whole skit about Project 2025. I mean, and which was funny, but it was also kind of like an oh shit moment too for anyone that doesn't know about Project 2025. So there was great music. There were lots of things happening that gave the entire experience a wonderful, frankly, feeling. Of course, I'm not a Democrat. I consider myself a leftist, but also not immune to joy. And I know it when I see it. And there was joy in the room, and that was very much calculated, very much by design. And I think the Democrats are onto something there in leaning into those feelings, right? So that's one thing that I perceived as unique about the way that the convention operated. We have to be though honest and forthright about some of the things that we're missing. As you know, there is a movement of uncommitted delegates who didn't write in Biden's name, didn't write in it, but wrote uncommitted into their votes in the primary elections. And those uncommitted delegates appeared at the convention with, among other things, and at the top of their agenda, trying to force the platform to be more aggressive in stopping the genocide in Palestine, and to first and foremost call for a ceasefire, but to also stop arming Israel, to initiate an embargo against Israel. So they wanted for there to be a speaker who could represent and speak to the catastrophe that is happening in Gaza, and that didn't happen. That was one of the demands that went unmet. Now there were other things that happened behind the scenes at the convention that we didn't see on TV. They were afforded opportunities to host workshops and to do other things. The kind of sidebarred those things passive aggressively, like some of the events that they had planned, that they had allowed for the uncommitted delegation to plan, were after all the shuttles had taken everyone back to the hotels. But okay, now you can have your workshop, or your speakers will get a chance to talk in small groups of Democrats who were here for the convention. So things like that. So some of the things they wanted to do, they got to, but the big thing they wanted was to have a speaker take one of those primetime slots, and that didn't happen. So I'm curious to know, when you hear that and when you see what Emma Vigeland here is saying, that not having a Palestinian speaker is tantamount and comparable to Jim Crow, or comparing like our sanctioning and the Democratic Party's sanctioning of the genocide to what happened and what this country did to Native American peoples and indigenous peoples here in North America. What's your take on that? How do you react to that? How do you relate to that claim?
I think there's a couple things. I think that in negotiations, I think you have to look at your
how much room you have, right? And at
Mhm.
this late and at this late of the game, I think that sometimes politicians can realize they have no other choice,
Mm.
right? So if you kind of have them by the balls a little bit. As it, they could be right, but what you gonna do if I don't? Because if you deal with me, at least I can sit back and maybe, maybe it's a possibility. But the other side, you can't guarantee anything on the other side. Other side is speaking with directly, as in they were saying even it was against the law for him to have some of that contact with Netanyahu even a couple of weeks ago, right? So he's talking with him directly now, um, or he was. So we know where maybe the other president could be leading towards. So not saying that what they're saying is invalid. Not saying that the concern is not valid, but from a political standpoint, they have nothing to stand on anymore,
Mhm.
right? So a lot of people are saying, well, if this, I think somebody was saying, I think Plies was saying some earlier, like, he had a little tweet or something like that. He was saying that everybody's saying, well, what's the plan for Black America or whatever, and whatever. And so there was a little discussion based on that. And some of it is like, one, the same type of questions that are not even posed or given to the other side, right? One, and two, the other side doesn't care. But then you make it seem like, the thing is that you make it seem I'm not going to vote if you don't address. And I think that it's a little late for that. Sometimes, it's like, you reactionary politicking versus let's try to have an agenda before the last minute. Because what it is, are you going to vote for? Right? It's kind of like, what you going to do? Not vote for them for her then? Not saying that. I believe in having the choice. Where right now the things that we're saying that are important by allowing the other side to go ahead and get the W, um, it could do a lot of harm.
Mhm.
So for that one issue, that one line politics, you gonna let everything fall because of this one thing. Not saying those things are not important, but I think that there's a level of strategizing to be effective, and now there seems to be no strategy to be effective.
Mm. Yeah, I think that there's a we're going to talk more about this. We have other discussions lined up where we'll talk about what does a person like us do in a case like this where we oppose the genocide. We've participated in protests. We've expressed outrage about it in our own ways, and certainly on our Facebook page. What do we do when both candidates, meaning Harris and Trump, have not explicitly said anything about ending and stopping the genocide? Right? Do we not vote and then leave the election possibly in the hands or empower someone like Donald Trump to become president? Do we vote and then is that an endorsement of genocide? Like that is a whole conversation by itself. I think because we will come to that again soon. The value here for me in the uncommitted movement is that this was a movement of people who were working both literally inside the convention and outside the convention. One of the uncommitted lead organizers actually had a protest outside of the convention, which drew attention. He got on CNN, he got on other platforms, he got to talk about and express his concerns for what was happening and demand that the Democratic platform include language about stopping the genocide and about forcing a ceasefire and about an embargo. Now, it's true that the Harris ticket is not saying anything explicitly or has not pledged to do any of those things. So if we're looking at it as either a success or a failure, it was a failure. However, there's nuance here, which is that there's power in what happened, and there is synergy between folks and activists on the street who maybe are skeptical of electoral politics, and folks within the Democratic Party who share many of the same ideas. There is opportunity here for continued organizing. So even though the platform was not shaped in the way that uncommitted delegates wanted, there was still a lot of progress made here, and there was headway made. And I think that kind of synergy is the thing that can continue to push the Democratic Party further in the direction of progress, because I'm with you. Like, there's no chance that the Republicans will ever adopt any of the policies that the uncommitted delegation was calling for. The thing that I worry about, though, Dukes, is that you and I and others critique the Democratic Party for its shortcomings, and we almost forget that Republicans are guilty of the same shortcomings and then some.
And this, right? Exactly.
That we begin to think of the Democrats as the enemy, and we start saying, "Oh, well, they're simply the lesser of two evils." Well, yeah, sure, that's true, but one is far more evil than the other. It isn't lesser of two evils, and they're rubbing elbows next to each other. One is on the brink of dictatorship, and the other one is on the spectrum but not near, right? So it isn't simply the lesser of two evils. One is significantly lesser than the other, and I don't want anyone to consider this a support for the Democratic Party. I don't know yet who I'm going to vote for. It's going to be someone on the left, or it's going to be Kamala Harris, but I don't know yet what I'm going to do. But we cannot lose sight of that. So some of the protests that happened at the Democratic Party, a lot of those big protests and the uncommitted delegation and others, like, that needs to happen with Republicans too. We cannot lose sight.
Exactly.
We have to be very vigilant about continuously critiquing the bigotry and outright tyranny of the Republican Party.
And so I think that's what some people were saying earlier. I mean, everybody was saying, where's the black agenda? But there was no force of action during the Republican convention.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like, one thing is like, or the question always is, you know, the Democratic Party has always, have never, you know, does not do enough for African Americans or people of color, and that is that's my total truth. Right? I know they don't. They take the votes for granted. They don't respect the votes of black and brown people, right? Mm-hmm. But then on the flip, and this goes to what we're saying, we criticize one, but don't do the same type of criticism of the other. But the thing is that the Democrats at least sees black and brown people, right? The Republicans don't. Sometimes their actions, especially during these years of Trump, they don't want they don't want black and brown people to vote at all.
Mm. Right. I mean, that's a great distinction you made, because it is Republicans that are gerrymandering and creating all of these ridiculous restrictions for voting in different states. And you're right. One group largely ignores the votes of black and brown people. The other party simply doesn't want black and brown people to vote.
Right. So, but then it's like it's not even like the lesser two evils, right? So it's worse than that, and I think that needs to be addressed. I do agree. Yeah.
It's more complicated than that, right?
I do agree with pulling back and saying, listen, I'm not voting for anybody till you can sit back and earn my vote, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But same time, the same thing I was saying with the Palestinians, but at the same time, that's a threat that really you can't do anything with, because the Republicans don't even see you.
Mm-hmm.
They don't even, you know what I'm saying? Because like you're saying, so with the gerrymandering, that's the whole thing was going on now. They're creating districts where the quote unquote black and brown vote won't even matter.
Yeah.
So they want to get along with know what? Yeah, they can vote, but no, let's make sure that their votes don't matter.
Right.
So now these districts are now you used to have these whole districts where there were maybe they 10 votes in a certain district of black people, and 10 out of 10, and now in these districts now you got 2 black people and 8 whites. They keep making
Yeah.
these, you know. So it's like, okay, yeah. So now the minority vote, the black vote, means nothing. You know what I'm saying? So it's like they're doing this on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
They do this on purpose. So now, so when we try to make the distinction of, okay, who are you going to vote for in that manner, it's like,
Right.
it's not the lesser two evils. One is evil. One, and the other just doesn't see you. One is evil. One is just, you know, not giving you the respect that you deserve.
Yeah.
But it's a lot easier to talk to this one because at least they're, you know, they're playing patty cake with you. The other one is like, you know.
Yeah. Well, so to that point, Dukes, one of the things, because the commitment that we've made in this conversation is to try to approach the presidential election and the race to the White House through the lens of race and justice. So one of the other things that we've talked a lot about and supported in the past and continue to support is a call for reparations. And so we wanted to draw some attention to what was discussed or not discussed at the convention itself. And so I want to get your thoughts on this after I share with our audience what occurred exactly. And that is that reparations activists have more recently been calling not simply for the passage of H.R. 40, which is a bill that's sitting in Congress that approves for the creation and makes for the creation of a panel to study what a reparations package might look like and what it should do. That bill has been sitting for many years in Congress with virtually no activity whatsoever. And so those that are most tapped into the fight and are pushing for reparations have been calling recently for the president to form this panel by executive order. And those activists were pushing for that to be part of the platform in this most recent Democratic National Convention. The platform, in fact, does not call for the president to use executive power to create that panel, but it simply repeats the same language from 2020, which is that Democrats support the passage of H.R. 40 to investigate reparations for African Americans. So it is considered by that measure a failure. Reparations activists and us in support of them did not get what was called for and pushed in this convention. So I'm curious, does that produce for you any new thoughts or reactions in addition to the ones that you already shared?
No, because I would say that everything seemed rushed, if that makes sense. Like
What do you
all
mean?
this, I'm like the timing, planning of it, with the dropping off of Biden, dropping out of Biden, and then electing, you know, or trying to find a replacement. So I mean, it was a short window of time, and so sometimes the main thing at this time was let's find a candidate. So some of these other things are definitely what was going to get pushed back to the wayside because of they just had to find a candidate. Not saying you can't chew and walk at the same time. Don't want to say that at all. But the first thing was, who's going to be the nominee, even though it was assumed that she was going to be, it wasn't guaranteed.
Mm.
And so, you know, and then also this is highly irregular, right? So I think this different. This is totally different. So I'm not saying at the same time if Biden was there, it would have been addressed. Probably wouldn't. But I think that if Biden was there, the Palestinians issue probably could have been resolved in some way better than what it was this time. I think that, but for reparation, I don't know. There was a bigger push leading up to it. Sometimes you need a bigger, you know, some lead, some type of motivation going into it, and it just didn't have it.
Yeah.
To make it an issue, sometimes you got to have some type of, you know, something going on.
Yeah, and I think another thing too that's worth adding is that there are reparations and restitution movements happening in smaller municipalities, and I think that there's probably some opportunity in coalescing one of those movements, either a land back, like a restitution success, or a reparations success at a local level or in a county or even at a state level, to line up with a convention so that there is momentum carrying from one place into the other. I do not think that this is an issue that will grab momentum at the national level. I think it has to start locally. And again, I'm speaking as an outsider to the movement. I'm a supporter of the movement. I'm not active in it. I have no doubt that there are activities and strategies being enacted. I think obviously that the more that happens, there's a greater likelihood of success at a national level like this. So that I think that's the only way, like you were saying, for voices to get heard is by pounding the pavement, talking about it with friends, organizing in communities, putting pressure on like your local elected official to bring people together to discuss it, to explore it, even small things, right? So that's that. But let's move on to the next question, and that is more around Kamala Harris's speech. I know that we and Tim, who couldn't be here, unfortunately, we had a lot of strong feelings about this in some of our pre-production conversation. Her speech described American citizenship as the greatest privilege on earth, and she also committed to maintaining the U.S. military as the strongest and most lethal, repeat, lethal fighting force on earth. So what are your reactions to this, Duke? I know you have a lot on your mind about it. What's
I guess some of it was it's kind of lost now because of hearing it, and now I guess it's just the time that we have in between. I think that was wonderfully written. I think that it galvanized people there and throughout the nation, right? I mean, the word choices that were used, it didn't isolate too many individuals. It made everybody something that it was coming together as one, and I think that it was great. I think it was a great speech. I think I said something when I first logged on, so I heard it probably late, got caught in the middle. I think that's what she was talking about. Excuse me, the American military and those type of things. And when I caught on, I was like, "Oh, I feel like I'm about to get a whooping," because he was speaking with such force. It was like very strong, right? And I felt as if, I think I'm saying, I felt like as if I was being yelled at by my mother.
You said it did feel like you were being yelled at?
That's what it felt like, right? So then at that very moment, I said, "Know what? Yeah, that's that black woman touch." I'm not saying nobody else can have it, but she was giving that speech of I mean business, and that's how it translated to me. Like, I mean, this is it. I mean business. So that started it. But at the same time, like, leaders have to be that way, right? Not saying it was bad, but if you're leading somebody, especially like if you're leading people to war, you have to be able to be that convincing. So then I also compare that to President Bush after after the 9/11, right?
Mm-hmm.
Same type of rhetoric was being used. I mean, when Bush had that speech on that boat, he could have got anybody to do, anybody to do anything. You know what I'm saying? You just had 9/11 and you had the World Trade Center, anybody could do anything during that time. Right at the time. So the thing is, I think that America's is in similar situation where, you look at a situation of the nation's being divided, right? And so it was a speech that was to bring both sides back together. And I just thought it was powerful. I thought it was powerful. I think it took every clue, every little thing that needs to be said to motivate people to want to come back to the table. Everything was said. I think it was a wonderful speech. Wonderful speech.
Yeah, I'm with you, Dukes. I thought that, I mean, if we're thinking about politics, well, we're thinking about politics right now in a very traditional way. And so thinking about other orators, about other presentations that we've seen in our lifetime, certainly her speech was among the more powerful in terms of presentation, in terms of mood, in terms of tone, in terms of the feels, right? So I think it had all of the things that you would want. It sounded incredibly presidential, if you will.
Good word choice. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely did. I can't think, or I'm hard pressed to pinpoint other speeches that are on par with that one. I thought it was also a great expression of who she is, right? In terms of her family, in terms of her professional life as a prosecutor, as a scholar, and on and on and on, right? So, in that respect, I think it was a complete and honest expression of who she is, and in that respect, I think that she won. She won the moment. I mean, she won it as well as she possibly could have. In terms of the substance of the speech, obviously there were some things that were concerning, right? She tried to paint this picture of herself as a prosecutor, but as a prosecutor for the people, and glossed over some of the things that she did to, like, in terms of crime and jailing people there in the state of California and other things. So she positioned herself as someone who went to bat for the little guy against the big guy, against big businesses, against corrupt business people, and so forth. She didn't so much talk about her lack of confronting the carceral system in really substantial ways, right? So in that respect, she wanted to express her skills as a prosecutor and sort of like tough on crime, but crime committed by wealthy people, right? So there's this populist feel to what she was trying to do there also. And then the last part of her speech, she starts talking about being committed to continuing the war machine, and Israel has a right to defend itself and everything. And she did mention Palestine, and she did mention, like a right to like self-determination and everything, which I thought was interesting that she would say those two words together. I don't think that any presidential candidate has ever said, if I have the wording right, self-determination and Palestine in the same sentence. So I thought that was very interesting. While also, though, reinforcing the prevailing belief in American exceptionalism and this idea of America as the greatest nation on earth, and that greatness comes in part from our military power. So she has every intention of continuing a policy of empire, and she was very forthright about that. And so she's, on the one hand, she wants us to all feel good and hold hands, and she also wants us to celebrate and applaud the empire as well.
But keep in mind, remember that quote you used last week from a scholar?
Yeah, from Taifa.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And let's go back to that because I wonder. I'm asking. I'm saying that, but also saying thing at the same time as when we were critiquing. Make sure we're being fair in that critique, because you can say both are going to do the same thing for. I mean, so if we're saying she's doing this, and not saying that she can't be critiqued, but let's make sure the critique is justified.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense. So she's saying that, but what did you expect her to say, more or less?
Yeah.
Keep in mind,
So check me.
so
Yeah. So you do
no,
you
no,
think
no. So,
you think that I'm being unfair to her?
I think a little bit. So let's talk about. So if
Okay. Okay. So I get a slap. I get a slap.
yes, I can't see it for some reason because I'm trying to get things together. But let's just say that let's just say that let's go back to the critique that you had from the author. What's her name
Okay.
again?
I'll pull that up. But keep going. I'll find it and pull it up. Go for it.
But that's what she. But same time, even though like same thing, that you was talking about. She was talking about the joy of voting for Obama, the joy of having maybe having the things in the yard and campaigning and giving money, but within the same breath realizing that his role would be head of the empire.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same. If it's the same thing for him, it's the same thing going to be for her. We can't expect that she's going to be you can't expect that this one person is going to change how the role of American politics without even being elected. So of course she's going to talk about the war machine because that's the foundation of who we are. Now she could talk about maybe not so much money going into that machine. That's possible, right? She can say that, but there's also bases and people that are voting that she also got to keep in mind. A lot of people are easily scared, and a lot of people are easily scared in knowing that we are protected means something. So I'm trying to say. I'm just saying. So that's just it. I think that she has to have a platform. Some of that platform is she spoke on, but
Yeah.
once and so that's that. That was there. I just that when we critique that, make sure we sit back and say even though she said these things, what's on the other side? Not saying she gets a free, not saying she gets a free pass, but let's compare or be more realistic on ways that she can maybe address some of these issues.
Right. Okay. And so this even goes back to some of the conversation that we had last night when we posted something about how we think leftists should approach the upcoming election. And we will discuss that more as the election approaches. But we can talk a little bit about it now in the sense that one of the points that we made last night in a couple conversations with people was don't fool yourself into thinking that by not voting for Harris, you're not participating in empire.
Yeah,
The point was, I'm not going to vote for evil. Therefore, meaning I'm not going to vote for Harris because she supports genocide. And our point back was, you're already participating in the genocide. Like anytime you go to the grocery store and pay for something, the taxes that are levied on the food that you buy, the paycheck that you earn, like in some way, shape, or form, your money is being taken by the U.S. government and then being transferred in some way, shape, or form into bombs and weapons that are being used to prosecute a genocide in Gaza. The counterpoint to that is, well, how do you know that my money is the money that's going into it? But then the counterpoint to that is, to people in Gaza, it doesn't matter whether it's your money or the person down the street's money or the person in the next state over money. All they know is that it's bombs that are being paid for and supplied by the United States. And so in that respect, no matter who you are, no matter how much or how little money you have, by virtue of being born in this country, you are an imperialist. Now, as an imperialist, you have, and knowing that and acknowledging that, you have a duty to strive against the empire, right? It doesn't mean that you're not an imperialist in that sense. You are, whether you mean to be or not, whether you are the most street savvy activist or whether you're working in a corporation, and it doesn't matter, right? To people in Gaza, it does not matter. So in that respect, it is naive of us, and I do agree that like we're already participating in the empire. And so if you think that voting it makes you more participatory, then you already are. That is a misguided notion. What do you think about that, dude?
I think so. I think you hit it right there. It's like sometimes we do need to realize that we are part of the problem, right? And so, and this is where I think that we have to figure out how to get our politicians to listen more. But a lot of it, I think that we got to get educated on why these things are at this point. I think that no one knows, or maybe it's not addressed enough on why we support them. Why have Palestine always been given? Why have we always been giving them, tanks and stuff? Why?
Mm-hmm.
When did it start? What's the reason why we do it? I know we do it for other countries, but why do we do it?
Right. Hey, look, one of our friends, Dukes, one of our friends, Torben Russo, he dropped a couple comments that I want to acknowledge. So pardon me for cutting in.
Go ahead.
Yeah. But as you know, Torben is someone who's been commenting a lot lately, and we always appreciate his comments. Hugely insightful, and we've taken a lot of insight from him, and I hope that he has in our conversations with him as well. He said that that's why he moved out of the U.S. and he's ex-military, and then he also says here that he's going to vote in the election, although he says that in his state it won't matter. I'm in a similar situation. I live in Chicago, Torben, and so no matter who I vote for, my state is going to be carried by Kamala Harris. So, and again, we'll talk more about this in future conversations, but that's definitely part of what both Amari and I are considering. He lives in Michigan. I live in Chicago. So in that respect, we both have we're in different contexts, but I respect that a lot, Torben. And we were even talking last night with someone who's like, listen, I'm in the streets organizing. I'm not going to vote because I'm in the streets organizing. I'm building capacity. I'm doing things that I think can be impactful in my community locally. I respect that completely. I completely respect that, right? Like if that's your life and that's what you're doing day in and day out, and you want to turn your back on electoral politics, far be it for me to judge. I think there are a lot of people coming out of the woodwork, though, who are not actually engaged in one way or the other, who are promoting this idea of non-participation and are also not doing anything to organize people in their own communities. And that is where I become a little bit more personally judgmental. Here's another comment from Torben. He says, remove the Electoral College, make Israel a foreign actor, get activists to work toward a tiered voting system. Definitely, Torben, right on.
But I think some of it is this, that, right? It's understanding the people have the right to make the decision to vote or not vote, right? So that's there, and we can respect that. But I think that also is the conversation of these Johnny come latelys saying that they're not going to do it for whatever reason, and it's like, you're just being contrary versus you really adding on something to the discussion. As in the guy who you're saying was the activist in the streets has another. His thing maybe it's not the big aspect of the federal level of politics, but maybe it's local, being involved somewhere. You can sit back and respect what that looks like, but some people just want to be contrary to get attention, to have something to say, to sound a certain way, and it's like, if you're not going to vote, then I'm not talking to you. Then,
right?
Why am I engaging in? Why am I engaging in talking to you? Because the people we're talking to now are people that we hopefully are voting. Right. You're not going to vote. I don't have time engaging you. That's totally fine.
Right.
I'm not here I'm not here to sit back and try to encourage you to do something that you have a conviction not to do. That's your choice, right?
Yeah, and like Tim, I mean, Tim has moved out of the country himself, just like Torben has, and a lot of that was driven by like his own disgust with our country. And so like I respect that incredibly. I mean, I think anyone that does something like that is changing their life and turning their life upside down to an extent because of a strong conviction. And so our policy Like what we've always said as a collective is you can be an artist for the cause, you can be a teacher for the cause, you can work in corporate America for the cause, or you can be in the streets fighting for the cause. As long as you're in the cause, as long as you're in the struggle, we don't choose one lane or another. We choose all lanes, which is why earlier it was so exciting for me to get to talk a little bit about the non-committed movement, because that's one that is bringing people together from different avenues of advocacy and liberation work.
Even those, the thing is that it's also people organizing to get their viewpoint out. Because what it is, I think people, it's so different from now when you have access to so much information, but still not enough information.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so everything's out there, but it's like people still not getting enough to sit back and get a true understanding or a true vision of what people are talking about. So like, for example, like we were saying before, why do we support Palestine? I mean, why do we support Israel? It's that's how it's been all my life, right? It's how, and so that's one part about it. The other part about that is those people who are supporting Palestine, what's the solution? What are their solution, right? What does it look like? But the things that everybody's talking about, but there's not enough substance in these 20-second sound bites. All right, and so that, I think that's part of the problem too. Is like people, I think we do got to figure out a way to get together, sit down, and hold conversations to the point where we can get educated enough to help to do that. So, because I think we have a responsibility then if we take this information, then we do go speak to our politicians.
Right on.
Then, like, because the thing is that, I'm not saying that they couldn't be on the stage on last week, but if their message didn't hit enough people, because you know what I'm saying, everybody still so everybody's still relying on Twitter and Instagram to have things go across, then you know, information again is not being transmitted to one person to the next.
Right. Let's go on. Let's check out the couple more topics that we had arranged to talk about. So here's one, Dukes. I'm interested to know, this is your guy. I'm just joking. Robert Kennedy dropped out and endorsed Donald Trump. How do you think that this will impact the outcome of the election? And I think it's interesting to note that previously Kennedy had gone at Donald Trump pretty aggressively, and had rightly labeled him prejudiced, a bigot, corrupt. I mean, fearmonger. I mean, almost every insulting word you can imagine one would hurl at a politician or at a fascist, right? Kennedy has used those words to describe Trump, including this tweet, which was many months ago, if not more than a year ago. So I don't think that it's so surprising that a politician is competing against another for a candidacy, then turns around and endorses them, and then like their words are used against them. I know that happened with Kamala Harris and Joe Biden back in 2020, but I don't think that the turnabout is necessarily a surprise. But Kennedy was attracting a small number of voters to the election. He had gained a small following. I'm curious to know, given his previous position on Trump, given how ridiculous some of his own behavior and policies are, and given the small number, but probably important number of voters that supported him up to him dropping out, I'm curious to know what impact you think this will have on the race.
I'm not thinking that they're going to have any major impact. Nothing major.
Okay.
I don't think that too many people were going to vote for him anyway.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out, who are the people that are voting for Robert Kennedy? Are these libertarians, or are these? I'm confused about who they are, and frankly, I've never met anyone myself, and I don't know that. Have you encountered anyone on our page who is voting? Yeah, so we've never encountered anyone on our page or in any other avenues of our lives or work where we've encountered someone like that. So I just don't know who it is that would be voting for him? Are these like centrists? Are these like outside lefties that I don't know, something with the Kennedy name? I'm just completely confused. But he's such a strange guy. I don't know that people who were voting for him would then turn around and vote for Trump or Kamala. It seems to me, this is pure speculation. I could be completely wrong about this, but it almost seems like a group of people who would only vote for Kennedy and nobody else. Again, not based on anything. Admittedly, I didn't prepare a lot for this particular segment. I don't know who the people are that will vote for Kennedy. Do you have any insight on that, or like what do you think? How would you answer that? Like, who's voting for Robert Kennedy in the first place? Dukes? Okay, we'll jump into the next topic. I think Dukes might be having some trouble with his device. So we'll do the next segment, and hopefully he can rejoin in just a second. The last particular question that we had to talk about is something that has arisen in the past day or so, and that's the discussion about and the planning of the upcoming debate that is scheduled for September 10th. Harris and Trump campaign officials are discussing whether to use open mics or closed mics for the upcoming debate. The Harris campaign seemed to be those calling for the mics to remain open. And by open mics, what we're talking about are allowing for the microphones to stay on even when that particular candidate is not speaking. This would allow for candidates potentially to interrupt one another, to talk over one another, and so forth. And so there's a quote here from the Harris campaign that we thought was interesting, and that is the Vice President Harris is ready to deal with Trump's constant lies and interruptions in real time. Trump should stop hiding behind the mute button. So we're wondering what you listening think about this. What's behind this discussion? Is there something here for us to talk about? Is this a meaningful debate that's occurring between the two campaigns? Do you think that it will matter in the outcome of the debate, or how each of the candidates perform in the particular debate? Personally, I do think that it matters. I think, though, that aside from the actual debate, right, and the perception that we viewers will form of the candidates based on how they behave with open mics, I think that there's a larger issue here that the Harris campaign is trying to illustrate, which is the sheer immaturity of Donald Trump. Because I think as much as many of us understand this in a very fundamental way, there are still people who don't, and who maybe don't think that Trump is as immature as he really is. And so I think this is another attempt for the campaign itself to try to illustrate to voters that Trump is incompetent, that he's unqualified, and everything in between. For me personally, it's just another manifestation of white privilege, frankly, of an unqualified white male who has ascended to the highest possible political position in our country, and has done so in spite of his many immaturities, his many inabilities, his deep bigotry and love of fascism. We're actually having a conversation about whether the mic should be on or off. So for me, I don't know that all voters will go as far with it as I am, but for me, that's what this reeks of. And that's why I think it's important for us to at least talk about to some extent. What do you think, Dukes?
Let's see. Can you hear me? Let's see. A couple things. I think that we were talking earlier about the speeches And I think there's a big contrast from what we have from the Republican convention, and then what we had 4 years of Biden, right? So there's a different level of vitality that she gives, right? So that vitality is there, and so there's energy there, right? So I think that although we can critique her speeches, the speech of her and even anybody else, also is going just against all same time of the energy that we're getting from Biden, right? So some of that is that maybe it's not that great, but maybe it's just she could have just been better than Biden was going to do, right? But at the same time, I think that she may be better suited to deal with the stuff that he says. As
My bad, Dukes. Go for it. Go for it.
to go against to go back to in high school. And some people dealing with bullies or whatever. Some people just on the verbal aspect don't know how to counter
Yeah.
what the bully says, right? So then somehow the bully always wins because he has the best comebacks, or and so that he shuts people up by that. And then sometimes if you know how to come back or say whatever, say something slick, he wins, right? So maybe she feels like she wants that opening to say some stuff, and maybe she can catch him better. She can say something better in those conversations, because there's things that he said that he just happened to get away with, and you sit back like no one's going to check. No one's going to. He said something there, right? He said something there, and no one's going to check that. So he's getting away with things. Even you look at even things like when he's speaking with reporters or giving these great Gray has a great time with on the news channels. No one checks him. So he gets away with that. So maybe the aspect of the prosecutor, she's like, I'm used to people slipping up. And when they say something, I need to attack it right then.
Yeah.
Because he might because we look at the last 8 years. 8 years, he hasn't got any younger. He's got worse.
Yeah.
So maybe that's also. I mean that's what this is. Just got worse.
Yeah. Okay. I put up a comment from Torben, and he offered a couple. So let's react to them. So this is a comment that won't appear on the screen fully, but he first says, "Great conversation. We need more of this and more activism at the local level. Politicians have no incentive to listen unless we as a group hold out and hold our vote as a block that affects their chances of beating their opposition. We all have a part to play if we want a future and choices that are anti-war and anti-genocide, pro-worker, healthcare, inclusion, the rest. U.S. supports Israel because it aligns with American exceptionalism and our thousands of military bases across the world that are strategically placed to exploit resources and extend neocolonialism with a modern twist backed by mass media propaganda and the ever-increasing need to maintain profit margins and the powers of the oligarchy." On to the next topic. Hope you don't mind all the replies and comments. It's the New Englander and me. So he's got a couple more here, but any reaction to that comment, Dukes?
I think that some of that what he was saying is that I think always some of the foundation of some of the 360 always been, right? But it's that like he said, let's continue these type of conversations, and let's find ways to be connected to some grassroots organizations. So what this is that even though this presidential election matters, but I think that we do need to start focusing on maybe some of the local elections that's going around the nation, because she only has so much she can do if there's not a House and Senate that's willing to work with her agenda. And so those things matter. And then, like at the same time, from political understanding, how do we put pressure on our leaders? Because when they sit back and say, "I must listen to my constituents," but if no one's talking to them, or there's no pressure, for them to make a decision, they're not listening, right? But if we don't know how to engage, how to force them to come from Washington to home to listen, then there's really
Yeah.
no connection. And also, there's nothing. Sometimes it's something that you learn from the Panthers, or sometimes it's going to the people and asking them what they need, or sometimes like it's that block for block situation. Let's control this block and make it the best, and then you can do things like that. But I think that's the ideal way. But just how our society is ran is like, oh, let's focus on the big thing because that's the big thing matters, and actually the most stuff that's more local to you matters more than anything else.
Yeah. I appreciate Torben's attention to the history there of Israel, because I think for you and I as older guys, we think of like post World War II history as recent history, but in fact, for like your daughter, for my son, that stuff happened. Like to them, it happened 100 years ago.
100 years ago.
They're not actually that far off, right? I mean, in terms of their own lives. So thinking about the geopolitics after World War II and Israel's situation in that, and then our role in various coups in the Middle East and Iran just a few years after the creation of Israel. In fact, I mean, he's absolutely right. So I'm glad that he attended.
But then, like, how do we get the education out? Because like
but that might be something we need to do, Dukes. I mean, to us, it's like what we grew up talking about and reading about and even teaching children about in our own classrooms, right? In our careers as teachers. But like that, there's still a need for that now, because you know as well as I do, history is not taught nearly as much as it was.
But then also it's the excitement. Like, remember how we got excited on D-Day? Like just the thought. Like, not the tragedy of it, but you see people just jumping off that boat. It's like, wow, what type of courage they had to.
No doubt.
What was that speech like? What was that speech like?
Right.
It had nothing to compare to what Kamala just did or what Bush did, and after 9/11, it had to be something. It had to be what was that speech?
Right. Here's another couple comments. So Torben said that he thought about voting for Kennedy, and then he mentioned here this is more support, more insight into his support. Like Torben is an environmentalist, and that was a huge deal. So Kennedy had took positions there that Torben valued. Okay. So, and he doesn't think that there's going to be much of a needle move there. I think I agree with you there, Torben. It sounds like you do too, right, Dukes? Like there won't be much of a move.
I don't, and the thing is that I don't not say like the third party person is not nobody. I want to vote for that person. I want for our system to have more options.
Yeah.
I want that third or fourth person to be taken as a serious candidate. I do. And so like you were saying that you might not out of not enjoying or believing anything that Harris is, which she may think, but it's the belief in creating more diversity in politics.
Yeah.
And I believe in that. I believe in that also. Like, why can't we have 3 or 4 or 5 different, versions of whatever? And
yeah, of course, no doubt. I mean,
I think that having more parity in the situation brings up better competition, and now people are really fighting for your support.
Right, and I mean that's exactly the dilemma that I'm in right now. Is that I know there are a lot of people like us who are in battleground states who maybe like the position of Jill Stein or Cornel West more than Kamala Harris, but also know that vote in a battleground state is like a vote for Trump, right? And so people in that position, maybe don't have the privilege that I have, where Kamala Harris is carrying my state, so I can vote my conscience without giving any thought to my vote being used as a vote for Trump or costing my state, tossing my state to Trump, right? So So I mean, there are things about Jill Stein that I like. I like her VP candidate. We'll talk more about that in a proceeding episode. Obviously, Cornel West is someone that we both grew up reading and referenced in our young days as 360 and stuff too. So I mean, they're definitely. I agree with you that third party candidates definitely deserve to be taken more seriously. We appreciate this shout out here, Torben, about what we're trying to do with our Facebook page and in these conversations. We appreciate that very, very much. You saying that. And then this is a comment that he just dropped. He said, RFK's support for Israel was a big problem on my end for considering him. Stein and Cornel West are the only two options currently that I'd vote for. I'm not sure Cornel is still running at this point. His campaign isn't very good. Exactly. That's right on. I mean,
but the thing is that it's only when we say that is also because the funding behind it. So you think about the staff that they don't have, the talent of the staff that they don't have because of our type of system.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's not that he could. Let me say this. If Trump could be it, anybody can be it. Right? Anybody could be it. So anybody can get there. It's just having the funding and the staff behind it to make it roll.
Yeah, and then I mean you have the PSL, the Party for Socialism and Liberation. They have a ticket. However, I don't know the PSL that well, but what the little I know is that they don't seem to be doing much on the ground in local politics. It's almost like they have this candidate, but they don't have a whole swath of candidates running in smaller municipalities. I could be wrong about that, and we're going to study more about that and do more about that in the proceeding conversations where we do focus more on some of the candidates that are getting less attention. And then you have Jill Stein.
I like that because if we do that, because those candidates have those ideas that actually people really care about,
right?
But they don't know how. But the major parties overlook. You know what I'm saying? And so maybe I like that idea because I think that because that's how you could. I mean, I think if they listen, like take some of the ideas from maybe what some of these ideas of what they're talking about, maybe it could be more inclusive of people. I mean, but I think they're not so off. They're not so off to the point where their ideas is just like wacky because that's how people think of them, or they're whack jobs, right? But the thing is that how can we move them so much more into the mainstream?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, once again, maybe that's just attention. Maybe it is those key battleground states those states that are won up by a party that you would want to win is voting for them just on GP. Right now they're saying that my state is a toss up right now. So I'm not in a position to take a chance. It does, like you said, it does seem like Illinois at this very moment is leaning highly towards Democratic.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's the way you want to go, then yes, then it's a gamble you can take.
Yeah. Right on. I think at this point, Dukes, the things that we have lined up to talk about, in addition to current events, we come back on September 17th. So that's just a few weeks from now.
Uh-huh.
We'll talk about current events, but when do you think we ought to have the conversation? I know that in our planning for this series, I know that it's a topic, but when do you think is the right time for us to talk about this idea of being a leftist and voting for Kamala or not participating or voting for the lesser of two evils or voting for when do you think we should do that sooner, like on September 17th? Should we do that?
I think we should do it the next time around because sometime in September people can start mailing in votes, right? So I think that's one of maybe we should do because a lot of people are like, I'm not doing it. I'm not voting. And it's like, okay, and like I said, once again, if you're not in the conversation, I guess I don't have to talk to you. That's totally fine. But maybe those are really on the border. Maybe those people are just being contrary to be just be saying it. Maybe they need just a little bit of something to motivate them, like reasons why. reasons why, and in that we can address some of their issues about why. We could look at some of these other ways they can vote, and at the same time, it's like maybe it's not just. And we can also emphasize more local races or people that this is a good person, these are good issues to look at, because like anybody remember go back 2 years ago? I mean, was it last 4 years ago? I said I wasn't that interested.
Yeah.
I mean, because that's just really where it was.
Yeah,
I wasn't that interested. But then you think about it, you get around certain people. Once again, you get around certain people, as we said earlier, and then they can change or influence or motivate a viewpoint, and that's nothing wrong with that, right? So, it's just being honest, saying where you're at, and then okay, if I do want to make a change, how do I go about that, and what's the best way of doing it? So,
right on.
All
right, so we'll do that next time, and we'll make time for current events. By that time, there will have been a debate, I believe, tentatively. So we'll break down the debate, and we'll get into this conversation, and we can come back to it a couple more times too.
Yeah.
Each time, perhaps, because you're right. It is important, and we know from conversations on Facebook and in our own lives that there are lots of people who are in exactly our situation. So,
but then I also like also giving that information, like we got to figure also how do we bring the excitement back to some of these things that we find ourselves in and how it started. Mm-hmm. So like if this thing with Palestine is a big deal, how did we get to this point?
Hey, look. Hey, did you just call a genocide a thing? A thing? Is that the thing with this thing with?
Yeah.
Oh, see here.
You went okay. Yeah. But this thing, well, yeah.
But thing with Palestine. What? Wow.
So there you go.
There we go.
we got graphics now.
Yeah, we're gonna have sound effects soon, Dukes. Hey, listen, it's an upgrade, man. It's an upgrade from the first conversation we had till now. Listen. That's right.
We get sound effects in a couple of weeks. That's funny. That's funny.
All right, Dukes. Look, man, it's been a pleasure building with you as always, and I look forward to the conversation on the 17th. I think might have a special guest with us. Certainly, I think Tim will be back with us, so that'll be nice to have him along. Yeah, I guess with that said, man, I wish you all the best, and we'll be back on soon. We hope that everyone who listened enjoyed the conversation, and that you stay engaged with our page, and that you come back on September 17th for Volume 3 of Race to the White House, Race to the Presidency. Thank you again for listening. All powers, people.